So there's a interesting thing about being a libertarian or a anarcho-capitalist or a voluntarist or a free market anarchist, whatever you want to call it. I think to a lot of people, whenever one of us speaks about a government program or a complex social issue, or admittedly anything in general, our answer appears simple and unsophisticated and highly repetitive and, kind of a cookie cutter fix-all problem. And it's usually along the lines of, well, if we just got rid of the government, everything would be better. And I think for some libertarians and some of us along that spectrum, early on in our pursuit of this this way of thinking, even we think that. But this is incorrect. When it comes down to it, we do not give a solution, as in getting rid of government is the solution, because we do want rules. Like, there do need to be standards and things that people are, not allowed to do, or at least punished for doing. I'm sorry, but the answer, right, is not just get rid of the government. The answer is more of a method, and it's remove coercion from society as much as possible. And it just so happens that the government is an agency of coercion. Now, I'm just trying to say that in a non-judgmental way, as just, I want to label it exactly what it is. There are other things you can put on top of it, like a government is an enforcer of the rules. The government is a referee in society. The government is, provides a safety net. Whatever role of government you want to put on there, sure. But I think when you strip it down to its most basic, the one thing that allows it to do everything else is its ability to use force, to compel people to act, whether it's to pay taxes, whether it's to, obey financial laws, or God, what are they? Speed limits, stop signs, all these things to fund this or that. Anything it does because most of the time people cannot, not consent. They have to, and if they don't, then they get fined or jailed or whatnot. It's just easier for everybody to just give it some sort of tepid acceptance, follow the rules, and move on and try to live your life the best you can, because there's no way you're going to overturn the rules that the government puts in force. So at its base level, it's a group, a group that has the authority, or at least perceived authority, to exercise force and coercion in a geographical area. And so that's the method that we don't like, that we don't want to consent to. Because if there is an agency that can use force, and it's not only that it can use force, it's like the only one. It's a monopoly, basically. If we're just talking about the ability to order people around, the government is at the top of that hierarchy, and there's no competitors for them. And so, right, it's useful to a certain extent. There are some things that it does that falls into the reasonable category. And I think that if the government was gone, we would still need those functions, whether it's courts or roads and why can't I think of them? Speed limits and stuff. Like there are rules that are necessary, but I think all those things can be achieved through cooperation, instead of a small group of people in your county, in your city, in your state, in Washington, D.C., just mandating it to us. Now, of course, there's some utility in it because it's clear. They have the ability to enforce it. And these rules are, by and large, universal or consistent across the entire U.S. or a large geographical area, which has its utility. It's useful. But the problem is there's no limitation on it. There's no controlling it. And I don't believe that voting is a powerful enough control on, or at least limiter on the government for exerting force on us. And maybe that's another video. But if you imagine that voting, well, I'll just give maybe a few reasons. One, it's usually the incumbent that wins or the person with the most money in the campaign. And so right there, I think that's a compelling argument that voting in conceptually is not, and I think practically not, a real way to limit the power of the government and legislators and presidents and, from top to bottom. And so we're not a one-trick pony. And the state. Get rid of the state. Separation of state and this. It's about a method. It's about cooperation. And anything inside of that bubble of cooperation is permissible. Maybe not everything. But it opens up a lot of avenues for acting. Another thing about government mandate or intervention is that it's by and large a one-size-fits-all. And for even countries as small as those in Europe, and especially for a country as large as the United States, one-size-fits-all is not going to work. I'm sure we're all aware of how diverse the people are in America. There's a lot of different subcultures, a lot of different belief systems, there's a lot of different, everything. North, south, east, west, there's a lot of different communities out there who have different beliefs on how things should be run. And it's unjust and it's simplistic and unsophisticated to imagine that we're just going to apply one rule over all of them and we're all just going to say, you know what? We're going to pay for these things. We're going to force you to do it. But if we open it up to voluntary cooperation, there are many, many ways that we can experiment with and find to reach our common goals. Like trying to make sure people have enough money to live, the goods are cheap enough, wages are high enough, food is safe, we have roads, whatever societal problem we have, we think that there are many ways to do it. And sure, there are some problems or some issues like roads where there would need to be some sort of uniformity. And I think that would occur over time. I mean, if you just look at the internet, standards evolve over time, and then a few get pulled out to be applied, almost universally. And this is all, but I think virtually, as far as I know, virtually done without state mandate and, coercing everybody to use this sort of encryption or everybody to use, TCP or HTTPS. Those things grew organically, and the ones that were really useful, that were really good, people adopted them voluntarily, without being forced. And I can't think of any better way for choosing something that's good and useful and and widely used than to let the quality of the idea and the product or good to speak for itself and to bring people into it. We are not one-trick ponies. It sounds like it, but we actually endorse many different permutations of trying to fix societal issues. And we're just sticklers on the one thing. We just want everybody to try to do it voluntarily without hurting anybody. I mean, if you break it down to the bottom level, an interaction between two people where they trade or they agree or they cooperate and work toward a goal collectively, voluntarily, like that's a win-win situation. That's a win-win-win. Person A wins, person B wins, and society wins. When you start forcing people to act, one is it's forcing people to act, and I feel that exerting force on someone who's peaceful is unethical, it's immoral, it's unjust. And the person or the organization that gets to exert that force, well, they're a monopoly, and monopolies don't give a fuck about the rest of how all of us feel. Well, that's all I wanted to say for today. Thanks for listening. Bye.